Hello everybody and welcome downstairs. Yes, a downstairs video review instead of my usual bedroom. Holy crap. And today, as you can kind of tell by this lovely and kind of boring box, because you know it's brown like a cardboard shoebox. What we have here is Transformers Generation Select's Tigertrack. That's this guy. As you can see, he's a yellow redeco of War for Cybertron Siege Sideswipe. So this is also my first time reviewing a non-customized War for Cybertron Siege figure, basically. It's just this redeco wasn't sold in the Siege line. But yeah. But there are probably a few of you out there asking, who the fuck is Tigertrack? He's just some character that Takara pulled out of their ass, and I want to say 2004 for the 20th anniversary of the Transformers franchise, when they thought it was a pretty cool idea to reissue a bunch of G1 toys in their true original color schemes in the days before Transformers, because Transformers was created when Hasbro had licensed and imported toys from Takara from their Diaclone toy line and Microchange toy line, sometimes recolored, you know, and then Hasbro sold those figures in their own markets. So yeah, here's a size comparison with the busted up Bumblebee. So yeah, basically, long story short, Tigertrack is basically the original Diaclone version of Sideswipe, when he turned into a yellow Lamborghini Countach, just made into a Transformers character. It's as simple as just taking that old Diaclone figure and just popping an Autobot symbol on him, really. So yeah, that's basically Tigertrack in a nutshell. And if you have the Class 6 2.0 versions of Sideswipe and Sunstreaker, you can kind of make your own Tigertrack by doing a head swap between the two and swapping the hands around, so you know they face the right way for, you know, the nose of the car is the chest. But yeah, here we have the Siege Sideswipe mold that's used for this version of Tigertrack. As you can see, he's a bright yellow Cybertronian car that already is on its way, like 80 to 90% on its way to looking like a Lamborghini Countach. And there have been people already capitalizing on this, like some Shapeways artists and maybe even third-party companies that go as far as to having a spoiler here that can split in two and fold out of the way. But nobody bothered to make a roof for this guy, which irritates me. Like, not a plastic roof. Sadly, all we have for that so far is just a bunch of stickers and custom painting. Like, look at this custom Sideswipe. That person used like a small sheet of paper or plastic to actually give him a three-dimensional roof. That's awesome. But nobody else has bothered to make like a Shapeways roof for him that can plug into the port here on this glass roof. And yeah, the glass roof that's basically one whole unit with the windshield, that's actually my big problem with this car. I don't like it. So realistically for me, the car mode is, yeah, purely because the roof, I think it's actually kind of meh. But then again, that's a bit of a problem with all War for Cybertron Siege figures, because they don't look very Cybertronian. They just look like somewhat sci-fi-esque or futuristic versions of their original Earth-based vehicle modes they had from G1 that they inherited from Diaclone, or at a push, Microchange, I guess. Though then again, when it comes to Microchange vehicle formers, that's kind of difficult because you only had stubby toy cars, like for Bumblebee and Cliffjumper, like stubby caricatures of real cars that are meant to, you know, literally hide in your toy chest. As opposed to Diaclone, where it's all about realistic looking cars. So yeah. Yeah, long story short, Cybertronian car, almost a Lamborghini Countach, glass roof, doesn't look good in my opinion. You have star-shaped wheels, which are kind of nice, with silver paint. And of course, in typical Hasbro fashion, even with co-production with Takara Tomy, which they did do for the entire War for Cybertron trilogy. Yeah, I mean, you have the Hasbro logo printed here on the box, and then the Takara Tomy logo here on the sticker. Even then, yeah, they don't, they just can't seem to match yellow paint very well with yellow plastic. So, yeah. You've seen his weapon too, plugged there, and you also have some ports here on the sides. And yeah, of course, there's an Earth-based retool of Sideswipe that's been released in the War for Cybertron Kingdom toy line, but sadly, that figure is a US exclusive. Or maybe even an Amazon exclusive, and he's in a 2-pack with Air Razor, who's been retooled to make a Generations version of Beast Wars 2nd Skywarp. The Takara version of that second Silverbolt that turned into an eagle, part of the Magnaboss set. So yeah. Anyway, transformation is quite simple, and you start by just folding the sides out like this. Then you open up these doors here at the bottom, which are so clearly the front of his lower legs. Holy crap, these are... Okay, there we go, that's that door open, and now this one, please. There we go. Then you fold the entire rear of the car out like this, so it's like a 180-degree knee bend. But oh wait, we have a twist, literally. He rotates 180 degrees at the waist. So the legs actually transform kind of similarly to Dead End from the Generations Combiner Wars toy line, and his various redecos and reshellings. But then you want to bend the knees further so that these ledges will push the feet down. And once you got those folded out, you can then close up the doors to form the front of his legs. So there we go, we can split those, get him to stand up. Now we rotate the camera up so we can have a better look at the upper body. Fold the hands out, disconnect the arms from these door panels, which are then going to fold underneath the roof. Fold out this midsection. And then, classic, rotate the nose of the car down to form the chest. It doesn't lock in place, but at least the hinge is separate from the shoulder joints. And there we have Tigertrack, the yellow Sideswipe from Diaclone in his Siege robot mode. And he looks pretty damn good. Basically the whole thing since, you know, the War for Cybertron trilogy is that this last stand of the Generations toy line is literally about, you know, miniature masterpieces essentially. Like, why would you spend a lot of money on a rather big masterpiece figure? We can have this. We're not quite done yet because we can also give him his gun, which plugs into his hand, and you have another tube here. I mean, so yeah, these can actually be held together as guns as well. But of course, it's most logical to just plug them together and mount them on his shoulder. And I believe it's usually the right shoulder, even for Sideswipes. So there you go. There's Tigertrack fully armed up. Head sculpt, very nice. Plus, it's kind of cool that, you know, even the original Diaclone figure had these little horns, so it's kind of a motif for this design. And I believe they did these horns because, you know, he turned into a Lamborghini of some sort. Like, especially the big V12 cars from Lamborghini, and yes, the Countach was one of them. They had a tendency to be named after bulls, after fighting bulls. So that explains why Sideswipe had always had these horns, kind of tying into that whole proud bull heritage from Lamborghini. Even though Lamborghini is an Italian supercar manufacturer and not a Spanish one. Lol. But yeah, very nice red Autobot symbol on the nose, which now forms the chest. I mean, paintwork is kind of minimal, granted, but still he does look good. Articulation, head is on a ball joint, and this guy's a very good example of the new standardized joint system. So, since the introduction of the War for Cybertron trilogy, Hasbro and Takara have kind of strived for a new standardized range of articulation, even going as far as a standardized joint system, where you would only have one ball joint left in the head, like I explained previously with Trailbreaker. It's just that here that the ball joint setup is the other way around. The ball's at the bottom of the head, and the socket is in the chest. So yeah. And outside of that, every other joint is a swivel or a hinge, or a combination of the two. So universal joints in the arms, so they can rotate forwards and backwards at the shoulder and move outwards. Swivel for forwards and backwards, obviously, hinge for outwards. 90-degree bend at the elbow, bicep swivel right below there. No wrist rotation with this guy, though. They might have been able to work it in if they used ball joints here instead of hinges, but then again, that would also be kind of looser, I guess, so they didn't bother with that. Waist rotation, obviously because of the transformation, seeing how he does that 180-degree knee bend, but the bottom of the car still becomes the front of the legs. So it's not like sliders, it's literally on full reflip. Because you may have noticed that the rear of the car is towards the top of the legs. So yeah. The legs can swing forwards and backwards on a swivel at the hip, and they can move outward, and you can basically do the full Van Damme. Let's see, can we... that's not going to go well, but yeah, needless to say, he has an extremely good tilt, though. Yeah, like pivots or tilts, which are these sideways hinges in the ankles, they're also more standardized. So yeah, universal joints in the hips, as you saw, thigh swivel, and a 90-degree knee, or just under 90 degrees. Though it is kind of weird how, you know, this little section of the rear bumper of the car tends to move with the thigh piece of the leg, because apparently there's only one hinge pin here. Like, it all rotates on the same rivet pin that you see there. So, that's interesting. So yeah, in short, Tigertrack, the yellow sideswipe from Diaclone in the days before Transformers. And guess what? His twin brother Sunstreaker, he was red in he used to be red in Diaclone, and they made a Transformers version of him too, called Spin Out. Like, both characters were fortunate enough to have a Masterpiece version and a deluxe figure in the Generation Selects toy line. It's just that, you know, with Sunstreaker, they had to go with the Earthrise figure because he didn't have a Cybertronian version. And one makes me wonder if they're going to do a Tigertrack based on the Earth mode retooling of Sideswipe from the Kingdom toy line. So, yeah. By the way, that car mode, it's cool. It's kind of like a more modernized take on the Lamborghini Countach. It looks like a Countach if it was designed maybe a few years ago at the very oldest, like 21st century, as opposed to, you know, in the early 1980s or maybe late 1970s in terms of designing. And before we finish it off, here's a good size comparison with Bumblebee. And you can definitely tell that the Siege Sideswipe mold is a little bit of a smaller deluxe. So yeah. Like, yeah, you can still kind of see it there over the chair. But yeah. Overall though, this is a good figure, though he is a little bit expensive. Because I feel like I have to explain that too. Because the whole thing about the Generation Selects toy line, as I bring the box in a little closer just so we can have both logos in the shot, is that it's a joint effort between Hasbro and Takara to create a new, somewhat more affordable, spiritual successor to the old tradition of exclusive Transformers toys that you can only get at conventions or if you're a member of the Collectors Club. Stuff like, say, that old Classics Alpha Trion figure, redecoed from Cybertron Vector Prime. That thing was only available at BotCon of 2007. Or there's the original Classics version of Thundercracker, exclusive at that same convention, though he was part of a 5-member box set along with Thrust, Dirge, Bugbite, who made his first Western debut, I guess, as like the evil white Bumblebee, and Dreadwind, or Buster, if you watched Super God Master Force. Or in terms of a club exclusive, there's that deluxe Slipstream figure, redecoed from Prime First Edition Starscream. You could only get her if you were part of, if you signed up, I guess, for the club's subscription service. But of course, that's all a thing of the past now. But yeah, so these are more readily available. Like, you can actually buy them from a store, but not necessarily your local toy store that's more so suited for, younger children. Definitely say more collector-oriented toy store. If they specialize in Transformers, there's a pretty good chance that they have a good amount of Generation Selects figures there, packaged in these cool yet boring cardboard boxes. So overall, it does mean that, the Generation Selects figures are a bit more expensive because they will set you back $30, or in my case, €30, which is a bit more than $30, as opposed to, say, the more conventional 20. But hey, at least this guy is still more readily available than the goddamn Kingdom version of Red Alert. That thing was nearly €38 for me. Yes, I could have bought him there, but €38 for a deluxe is a no-go. Even if it is a US Walgreens exclusive that somehow made its way to the Netherlands. I'm not doing that. So yeah, overall score, I'm gonna give him a 7 out of 10. He's good, but the price does kind of knock against him. And, the shade of yellow, it's pretty good, but it is a little on the bright side. At least it's not as bright as annoying. At least it's not as bright or annoying as Hubcap. Ugh. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go get this guy a roof. Somebody stole it.
Clarkson! Where's my roof?